Well, hello everyone. I'm Ben Winslet with Marchtozion.com. Welcome to MTZ Cast number 11, episode 11, which will be a recap of our experience this past week in Panama City, and, if you will, a recap of the Primitive Baptist relief efforts in Panama City, Florida after that awful storm went through. Well, as we got out of Wednesday night service last Wednesday, Elder Tom Corley called me asking for prayer and just kind of filling me in on everything that was happening and had happened there, and had indicated that the Panama City Church was greatly affected by that. And so that got my mind just stuck on going down there. And so by the time midday Thursday rolled around, after seeing the reports and the initial reports from Elder J.C. Stanlin, who pastors the church there, St. Andrew Primitive Baptist Church in Panama City, I knew that we would be making some efforts. Primitive Baptists would be making some efforts to help him. And so we started planning that and talking to other elders in other areas, things that they had in mind, and communicating with Brother Tom Corley and John Burkett and John Mizell. I spoke with Marty Hoskins, several other ministers in my area as well, Daryl Chambers, Matt Jordan. We just started bouncing ideas off of each other, how to handle this, who takes stuff down, who can go, who's available, because it's not easy for a lot of folks to just take off a few days' worth of work and drive down there. But we didn't know what yet we could do because people still didn't have access to Panama City. It was completely shut off, and you couldn't drive into town to see. And the church there is right in the middle of town. Communication was down. There was no power. There was no water. There was no cell service. So Friday, as we were preparing for this and talking, and other elders from other areas, other pastors were chatting with each other online and trying to come up with what sort of things to take and our game plan per region, because I think every region kind of grouped together to talk about this and speak between each other and try to coordinate and plan and prepare. I got a phone call from Brother Lance Hocutt from 5 Mile, and we, on Friday, started talking about maybe trying to set up a fund, and he opened up the Primitive Baptist Scholarship PayPal that he had, an account that he had for the Primitive Baptist Scholarship that was formerly in West Alabama, was a fund that they had years ago, and he still had the PayPal account, the bank account from that. So he opened that up for people to contribute immediately if you wanted to give. Because if you write a check, the check has to get there, and of course at this point there was no bank for the church in Panama City to cash a check at, and a check in their hand was basically ineffective. It was a piece of paper. What do you do with a piece of paper? You can't eat a piece of paper. So at this point, we set the PayPal up, Brother Lance did, I should say, and that enabled folks to begin contributing immediately. And so we began planning for that sort of thing, and on Saturday, I was speaking with a lot of folks on the phone, talked to Elder John Burkett, and spoke with, I believe, John Mizell and also Elder Tom Corley. John Burkett pastors the church in Albany, Georgia. John Mizell is from Tired Creek Church in Cairo, Georgia. And Tom Corley pastors the Palm Chapel Primitive Baptist Church in Crestview, Florida. And by the time Saturday came around, they already had access to Panama City, Florida, so they could get in and see and do things. And the church there, they had discovered it had a tree on it, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but they began working on that. And Elder Tom began coordinating for Brother JC since he had cell service, and the church there at Palm Chapel was kind enough to allow donations to be received through them for the church in Panama City because they had access to a bank. Because Crestview, I think they just got rain, amazingly so. They just got rain, didn't even have a lot of wind there. So, and by the way, if you go to Marchtozion.com, there's an article in the homepage that has how you can donate if you want to donate still to the cause there. and I have the address for Palm Chapel Church if you're interested in sending a contribution to the church there in Panama City. Just earmark it for St. Andrew Primitive Baptist Church or Hurricane Relief, and it'll go to the right place. But since Brother Tom had signal, he was coordinating for Brother JC, and they did their best to get the tree off the church because they knew if it rained, it would damage the inside of the church because they have a metal roof, and the tree that fell on it, they have block walls, so it didn't destroy the side of the building, but it damaged the wood framework for the roof and poked holes in it. And so they worked, I think, a couple of days to try to get that resolved. And I think Brother Tom was successful in that maybe Sunday afternoon. So Sunday, here at Flint River, we gathered supplies that were donated from Rocky Mount Primitive Baptist Church and folks at Union Primitive Baptist Church here at Flint River Primitive Baptist Church, and I'll show you some pictures of that. So that's what folks were generous to give. That's a picture of the stuff sitting out in our lunchroom. My wife went and boxed all of that together, and so we took care of that and got it all ready. And that night, let's see, some folks from Briar Fork and some other folks from Flint River gave us some cash donations. And Brother Hewlin Chambers, our deacon here, turned the cash donations into tarps and stuff. So he bought tarps and a couple of containers of gasoline. He bought, actually, O'Reilly Auto Parts donated to us. They actually donated 2 5-gallon jugs of gasoline. And they didn't donate the gas, just the jugs. And then Hewlin bought the gasoline, and he went to buy tarps from Tractor Supply and asked, because this is one of the one of the qualifications of an effective deacon. He asked if he could have them at a discount because it was going for the disaster relief, and they said, sure, you can have the tarps you want to buy at 50% off. So he was able to get twice as many tarps as he would have been able to get otherwise. So we got 2 free gas jugs and 50% off tarps, which is basically buy one, get one free. And so that was a good use of the money that folks gave us extra. And we got all of that stuff to fit in the back of his truck. Might add that Brother Hewlin's grandson, Ben Chambers, helped us load that together and load it up in there. My father, Elder Von Winslet, he had gathered some things at Ebenezer Primitive Baptist Church on Sunday and some cash. And also, I got a message from Vestavia Primitive Baptist Church from the Harrison family there. They took up a collection of items at Vestavia. So my dad, Von Winslet, picked that up and loaded the truck with stuff from Ebenezer. And I think he had some cash donations as well that he turned into tarps and bottled water. And so he just loaded down the entire back of his F-150 with bottled water, and it was covered the entire floor, and it was stacked 2 to 3 deep. So it was an awful lot of water. In fact, I have a video I'll show you in just a minute. I've got a lot of media I'm going to show you later on of all the water that is now in the church there. You know, Baptists are not afraid of water, and I think this is a testimony of that. If the Gulf of Mexico was low, they could probably do something about it because of all the water that was donated, but it'll be drank. And you might think, well, they've got water back on. What's the big deal of having all of this water? Well, some people have their water back on. Some people do not. But even if you have your water back on, they have a boil notice. In fact, my phone began to go off the alert system. It began to sound an alarm when I entered that county, because anyone in that county gets continual alerts on their phone to boil the water. Boil notice. You can't drink the water unless it's boiled. So how do you boil the water if you don't have electricity? How do you boil the water if your home got destroyed? How do you boil the water? Are you going to start a fire with the remains of your house? I mean, like you're a primitive hunter-gatherer? So that bottled water, it literally keeps people healthy and alive in moments such as that. So it's so very important to have, and they have plenty of it. They have plenty of it. You'll see that in a moment. So Dad loads up everything, and we we leave out Monday morning. That was all done on Sunday. We leave out Monday. Hewlin and I left at 7 a.m., loaded down with stuff that was donated through the generosity of churches and neighbors and friends here. And we met Dad Vaughn at Clanton, at the Clanton exit. And the same time, Brother Lance Hokut left, and he got there before we got there by maybe an hour or so, I think. And he had 200 gallons, I think, of gasoline, if I remember that correctly. 200 gallons of gasoline. Brother Lance is a member of 5 Mile Primitive Baptist Church. He had his son with him. They pulled a trailer behind his Hummer, and again, just gas is an incredible resource because it can power generators. There's nowhere to buy fuel there. People have to go north to Chipley or Bonifay and purchase their gasoline, but because of the generosity of others in bringing gasoline there, people had the means to fill their cars and their generators and maneuver around town. We got there and unloaded our shipment and then unloaded the shipment that Dad had from the Birmingham area. And then there was a group of folks from McClenny Church who arrived. Elder Michael Green was with them, and I think they may have had some stuff from Little Union on there. I saw some folks from Little Union in Lithia online taking supplies, so I'm assuming that it made it into that shipment. I mentioned also Tuesday, before we come back to Monday, Tuesday when we got to the church, right after we got there, and I'll also say that it takes you about an hour and a half to 2 hours to go from one end of Panama City to the other. So you're talking about 12 to 15 miles travel, but an hour and a half to 2 hours of drive time because there's so many people on the roads. So many roads are shut down. You have power lines still in the roads. You have power poles that are knocked down, and utility crews are putting the power poles back up. I have some videos of that too. So if you listen to me blab long enough, you get to see some footage. But once we got there, I don't think we were there 10 minutes, Elder Chris Folsom and folks from his area came in, and I think Brother Reggie Lee and Terry Heron were with him, and they had a trailer load of water, and I mean a trailer load of water. I mean, like you could have put a race car on the back of this trailer. It was a big trailer, and it was just loaded down with water, bottled water, and it felt like we unloaded water for a solid hour. I bet we did. I bet we did unload water for a solid hour. So I say all of that, and I might mention I wrote down Zion Church in Brunswick, Tifton Church, Mount Zion Church, and I think West Jacksonville Church. So many churches contributed. And I say all of that and mention all of them, not as a matter of bragging, look what we did, but I think this is so encouraging. And I think we need that example too. And how many times in Paul's epistles did he commend someone for sending to his relief, sending to help him? How many times did he commend people and, for lack of a better word, applaud them for what they had done? And I commend you guys for everything that you did and for all the hard work and the sacrifice. And it's one of those things when we all do a little bit. If every family at church brings a case or two of bottled water, you can get purified water for very little, maybe just a few dollars at Publix for a big case of it. But if every family in a church gives 1 to 2 cases, you're talking about $10 or less. Over the course of 2 or 3 churches contributing, you have a truckload of water, and a truckload of water can hydrate an entire little subdivision for a couple of days. It's really amazing how far it can go and how your kindness and your generosity affects and helps other people. But there was such an enormous outpouring of support for them. They were getting calls and emails and contacts, Facebook messages from all over the country. I got calls and emails from Virginia. Brother Don Singleton sent me an email. Heath Williams called me. Elder Mitchell Phillips called me. Barry Cordis called me. Elder Ben Cordis texted me wanting to know ways to help. I got a message from the Baton Rouge Primitive Baptist Church and from the Bear Creek Association in North Carolina, from Tidewater Church in Virginia, Bethel Church in Nashville, Bethel Church in Clanton, Alabama. I mean, guys, Primitive Baptist came out of the woodwork. Let's see, Monday, we get there, and Brother Lance Hocutt and his son, and Hewlin and I, after we unloaded the various shipments that arrived and fellowshipped and hugged one another and all the things that took place, we went and cut some trees. And so that night, and this is funny, only I would end up staying for free in somebody else's condo on the beach in the middle of disaster relief. Brother Lance had a condo in Panama City Beach, and Panama City Beach was barely affected relative to Panama City, the actual city of Panama City. So we stayed in Brother Lance's condo, and that night we'd kind of snacked maybe here and there on the food that we brought, because once you get there, there's nothing to eat. There's no restaurants. There's nothing you can really do except eat the relief food. And I thought about the passage of Scripture, to muzzle not the mouth of the ox that treads out the corn. As you're working, as the ox is working, the ox eats the corn that it's treading out, and he finds the strength to continue the work because he's eating the product, as it were. And it's literally what we were doing. We were eating and drinking out of the relief so that we could continue to do things for other people. But praise God, listen to me. We drive by, and on the way there, and it takes an hour and a half at least to get to the condo, from one end of Panama City to Panama City Beach. We get to the condo, and right before we get there, we notice the Waffle House sign is on. Waffle House is open. Praise the Lord. We get real food, and I have never been so happy to see a Waffle House open in my life. I've never been so happy. And I love Waffle House coffee, and it's a thing my friends and I would do in high school and college, and still when I go back to town, we'll go to Waffle House and sit there and solve all of the world's problems over a cup of Waffle House coffee. So I'm no enemy or stranger to Waffle House, but I have never been as happy to see a Waffle House as I was. We walked to the back gate of the condominium, and they had it chained. So, y'all, we jumped the fence. There was a hole in the fence from the wind, but it had a concrete fence about waist high with palms on each side of it, and we just kind of moved the wooden fence that was overhead high and climbed over through the hole, climbed over the concrete, and we walked to Waffle House, and I got a waffle and a Coke. I'm going to tell you what, it was the best waffle and the best Coke that I think I have just about ever had. And we went back and showered and went to sleep and slept great after all of that day. So Tuesday, we spent the day unloading again and tarping roofs and that sort of thing. So on to some of the footage. I want to show you Elder J.C. Stanlon's report. I did a live stream, and the signal was just absolutely terrible. I had good, as far as reception, I had good reception, but the data speeds were really, really slow. So I apologize in advance that this is not 720p or higher. It's lucky to be 360p, and it really wasn't. When I re-rendered it, it became that, but it's not even that. So it's grainy and pixelated. But here is Elder J.C. Stanlon speaking about the relief efforts there.
The Lord is good. We have taken a major hit in this area. The damage is severe and widespread, and people for the first few days basically have nothing. And God has moved in the hearts of his people around this country to bring in large volumes of supplies, water, food, and other essentials, and it is being received with great love and appreciation. And we just thank everybody. It's more than we can digest right now, and hopefully we'll soon be able to give appropriate thanks for all the good that's been done toward us. Thank you.
Yes.
God bless you.
Yes, sir. As far as the future and what the future needs are,
what do you see in a month or 2 weeks from now? What are the needs?
The power company tells us that they'll have the power on by October the 24th, and that is about less than 2 weeks. If they have the power on, then we'll be able to meet our essential needs here in this area. Then there's be a long, slow process of repairing and rebuilding the homes. A couple of our members will probably have to have their house completely rebuilt, and others have repairs that's going to take a good long while. But everybody has a good spirit and good attitude about it, and everybody is trusting in the Lord, depending upon Him, believing that we can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth us. And so it's going to be a very long process to rebuild, but the Lord has poured out His love through His people in this area.
Is there anything you need?
Right now, we need prayers. The goodness and the kindness of the Lord's people. We have plenty of water. We have plenty of gas. We have, at this point, a lot of food. We have more food coming in, and that's what's going out the quickest is the food. But right now, we do, with what we have and what has been committed, we have plenty at this time. And we thank you all for your support.
So, I think from that, the word would be, as far as any future relief right now, is stand by. If there is a need, you can be sure that He will let us know, and we'll put it in front of you, and we can begin contributing again. But you can always still contribute by way of Palm Chapel. You can send a contribution to them. But as far as food there, I think the word now is to stand by. Now, what he didn't say there is that the congregation, the church building is basically a giant free grocery store for people in the community. Let's see here. See if you can notice all of the water. We're talking about the supplies and how much stuff they have. Check this out. This is us unloading the shipment from Zion Church in Brunswick, Georgia, and all of the other churches in that area. Now, this is overflow. The kitchen is full of food and water, and that right there is the overflow. That's what won't fit in the lunchroom. Isn't that amazing? That's what God's people did to help folks. I'm so excited about that. I've got a couple of pictures. This is the area where folks can go and get food and water. You see the little makeshift grocery store there. There's actually a lady picking up some stuff to take for her family. Here's another picture of some folks there getting supplies. So if you've ever been there, it's the first time I ever went to that particular location. There are houses all around, and they're all damaged, and none of them have electricity. There's nowhere they can buy food, nothing they can do. And they just walk out of their subdivision, walk over to the church, and some of them drive. They fill up a box of water and food, take it back to the car, and they drive off. And they're so timid about it. They're hungry, they're afraid, they're depressed, they're devastated, and they walk in and they kind of look around like, is it okay? I mean, what do I do? What do I need to do to get something here? And the answer is always pick up a box and put your stuff in it. Well, and so sometimes they put stuff in it and they'll say, take more. And a lot of times there's one young man, Elder Chris Folsom, wrote about his trip back and forth, and there was a young man there who said, it's just me. I don't need a whole lot. Somebody else needs it. And he just took a little bit of water and he went on. But it was just amazing. It was amazing to see the gospel and the principles of the gospel, to love and to visit the fatherless and the widows in their affliction, and to visit the poor and remember the poor and the needy and the afflicted, all of that in action. It was an amazing thing to see. I remember the Mr. Rogers quote, anytime you have a situation like this, to always look for the helpers. That when something terrible happens, there are always helpers. There are people there that are trying to do the right thing and do something kind for others. And Certainly true. Certainly true here. Here's a clip. I'll move on to damage. I'll show you a clip of some of the sights and some of the sounds of the damage. First of all, as far as damage to the church there, they had damage in several forms. They had several trees down that'll need to be cut up and removed by a professional because these are large trees. And they leave a giant hole in the ground where the tree used to be that'll take backfilling and a backhoe. The building behind the church got just smashed. It's destroyed. There's no salvaging it. It'll be torn down, and another one will have to be built there. And also, a tree on the property beside the church fell over the fence and landed on the church. And it did a lot of structural damage to the roof itself, the wood of the roof. The church building is made out of block, and so it's really sturdy. But the roof is made out of wood, and it's a tin roof, and it poked holes all in it and damaged it. So if you're wondering about sending funds to the church there, again, through Palm Chapel in Crestview, Florida, it's definitely needed. Okay, so moving on from that to just some of the other damage in the area, here's a video of me driving through a subdivision that we did some work in, and I'm driving, so it's really shaky, but check this out. So you can see the damage there. You know, this is a little alleyway. The main road that we tried to enter on had trees and power lines blocking it, so we had to reroute and go through this alleyway. Sorry for the giant close-up of my left hand, but you just see the damage, the trees down, the destruction. It's just awful. It's absolutely awful. You know, see the piles of debris, or folks had already cleaned up. This is heading towards 231 where we stopped. Here is a clip of police cars. These guys, I mean, every 3 minutes a line of police cars, 15 cars long, came flying past us. They're just one after another, and ambulances as well. In fact, Brother Hewlin started wondering if they were just racing each other around the city, but we knew they were going to help somebody. Somebody was hurt. Somebody needed help. And over and over and over all day, that's what took place. Here's a clip from on top of a roof that was tarped. You can just see the destruction. These two sisters that live in this house are both widows, and they rode that storm out. They were scared to death. They were just absolutely terrified. Look at the destruction around that home. It's absolutely unbelievable. Could you imagine waking up to that the next day? You know, the place you've lived for decades and the familiar sights and sounds, and you come out the next day and even the trees are absolutely destroyed. Here's a clip of us driving down Highway 231, and you know that to the left was a forest. You know, it was just thick, dense trees. You can see the power lines on the inside, power lines being put back up on the outside, utility workers. This was actually fast-moving traffic, too. Traffic's usually way slower in Panama City. Now, here's something that's interesting. I saw a couple of times, and we're drawing near to the end of our MTZ cast. You know, we usually spend 45 minutes. Check this out. This was on the way into the condominium. You loot, we shoot. We got a kick out of that. Now, when we were driving out yesterday, let me show you this one. This was at a little trailer park on the way out. Again, you loot, we shoot. Most importantly, I'm going to leave you with my takeaway from all of that. I saw genuine, real, desperately needed Christianity in in my experience down there, in the middle of that just absolute destruction, you had people full of hope. You had people praying. You had humility and compassion and charity. There were tears. When we had a word of prayer, a lady who was in there filling a box of food began to clap after our moment together in prayer. By the way, with all of those elders, John Mizell, John Burkett, Michael Green, Chris Folsom, we could have had an awesome meeting. You know, could you imagine just let's get everybody in the sanctuary and let's just have a church service? Maybe one day we can do that. The thing that was the most impressive is just the absolute love of Christ that shed abroad in every one of those hearts, just beaming out of each other onto one another. It was just the most real display of what this is all about that I've ever seen. Now, I'm going to leave one last picture with you, and I think it's the most powerful image of the entire weekend, the entire early part of my week, rather. And it's probably the most powerful image that you're going to see after all that carnage and destruction and everything else. And I think it sums up everything that I just said to you. And it's a picture of Elder Chris Folsom and the two brothers that came with him right before they got back in their car and left. In the middle of all the destruction, you've got God's children calling upon the name of the Lord, giving him thanks and praise for being faithful to them even through the storms of this life. We live in a sin-cursed earth. Things like this happen, and they happen because of our sin, the sin of Adam. But God is so gracious, even in the midst of this. He's there. He's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. If you'd like to help with the efforts there in Panama City, Florida, be in contact with Elder J.C. Stanland or Tom Corley. Thank you for watching. Again, I'm Ben Winslet. May God bless you all.